The criminal probe into the Trump Organization is intensifying, with Trump's indicted money man back in court today. Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg appearing before a judge for the second time since being accused of the $1.7 million tax scheme earlier this summer. And here is the ominous and key takeaway from today. His lawyer revealing they expect more indictments and asking for extra time to review millions of pages of discovery documents, saying, quote, "There could be more indictments coming, Judge. What's the rush?" Weisselberg denies the allegations of wrongdoing. Also new today, we're learning details about the possible timeline for a trial. For the first time, the judge penciling in a trial date for a late August or early September of 2022. Earlier this month, the New York Times reported prosecutors are considering charging Trump Organization Chief Operating Officer Matthew Calamari Sr. with tax-related crimes. But his lawyer today insisting he will not be indicting, saying, quote, "If they presently intend to indict him, I would have been informed. In fact, I have been informed to the contrary." Trump's lawyer also telling Politico today he hasn't heard from DA Cy Vance's office for months, saying, quote, "We have no information of anybody else being charged, certainly not the former president." Joining me now is former acting U.S. Solicitor General Neil Katyal. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on The Beat. Neil, I love getting these updates about billions, the Trump years, when it comes to investigations into this organization. Where are we now? We found out that there could be additional indictments coming. We now know that there may be a court date set for sometime next August. Is this tightening of a noose around the organization, or are we still sort of setting the playing field for lots of other people who might be brought in the coming months?
Well, Jason, I think it's all of the above. So it is, the playing field still being set. There is some tightening of the noose, to be sure. Today, Alan Weisselberg's lawyer said that there will be further indictments, plural. So, that's what he expects. And there's a lot we don't know about that. There are some things we do know. So we know, for example, Alan Weisselberg, who was Trump's right-hand guy, has been indicted for tax fraud, and that he's been indicted for fringe benefits and abuse of that. And we know his defense is, well, lots of people do it. As any teenager can tell you, a lot of people doing it is no defense, certainly not a successful one. We also know that the New York Attorney General's office is working with the Manhattan DA's office hand in glove to try and do this investigation together. And we also know that the Trump Organization has been run less like an ordinary business like Palmolive or something, and much more like a criminal enterprise. And so that leaves us with some knowledge, but also some known unknowns. And, so just take today's news, we should take a note of caution about it. Weisselberg and his lawyer is not the best source of information. Weisselberg wants a delay, and that's what he was doing today. He was saying, I expect further indictments, and they've given me millions of pages of documents, the government to review, and I need more time. Of course, all he was getting was his own, the government was giving him his own accounting records back. It's a bold move to ask for more time to study your own documents. It's like asking the teacher for more time because you can't read your own handwriting.
Yeah, well, especially when you were using that handwriting to sort of forge things for other people. We also have new reporting here from the Daily Beast. The prosecutors have found evidence in someone's basement, I guess new documents tied up in the Brooklyn basement. Does this show that, again, this investigation is still, I guess, for lack of a better word, in a discovery stage? I mean, if they're still digging up old boxes and documents and getting iPads and things like that, the list of people being caught or the list of people being brought in could still be pretty long and still forthcoming, right?
Absolutely. This investigation is still in the discovery phase, to be sure. And yes, today there's evidence that I guess some new box of documents was found in some co-conspirator's basement, and after all the dramatic reveals of the Trump administration, like the secret recordings, what you were just mentioning about the Woodward January 6th secret memos, a box of evidence in a basement feels a little bit quaint. But, look, I think, that you're right. It underscores there's still a lot we don't know. And Trump's lawyers have been basically saying, well, he's clear. They're only indicting his, right-hand guy, Weisselberg. They're not indicting him. But just remember, the way criminal investigations are begun are against other people first. And you're trying to build the case against them. Sometimes they'll even flip and testify. Sometimes they won't. But just think about Enron, where the first round of indictments didn't include the CEO. But I think the CEO ultimately was indicted and went to prison for like 14 years or something like that. So that's the way criminal cases are brought. So I think we should all take a breath, let this thing play out.
So I want to play you a quick soundbite from Mary Trump talking about what the consequences of these ongoing investigations might have for the country, and get your thoughts on the other side.
There's a possibility that he's going to be too busy defending himself in court or too busy giving depositions to stay engaged politically.
Now, Neil, look, Donald Trump has not been known to ever have the greatest of attention spans. People tried to dummy things down for him when he was president. He doesn't seem to be able to keep consistent information or lies or honesty. But there's a possibility that if these investigations begin to flip people, and I do suspect people are going to start flipping like hotcakes once the pressure is really put on them, that this may actually be a distraction and keep the former twice impeached president from actually running again if he feels like these sorts of legal challenges are going to be too much for him to handle.
Well, I sure hope that's not what's going on, because, you know, these prosecutions should be brought based on just a pure law enforcement reason, nothing else. If there are other collateral consequences that follow, so be it. But, you know, I don't think that's a legitimate reason at all. And I do think just, you know, one important point here is that the allegations against him about the tax fraud, about him inflating assets and, you know, claiming charitable deductions that he never paid and so on, you know, that's actually not that different than the way the guy ran the country. I mean, inflating his value, pretending to be more charitable than he was, of trying to avoid paying taxes and overpaying his children to help him do it. I mean, say what you will, he kind of ran the country like he ran his business.
Not to mention the fact that he might see these sorts of lawsuits as an indicator that he really did frighten the swamp.
This morning, the longtime CFO of the Trump Organization, Allen Weisselberg, was back in a New York City courtroom, and his attorney dropped a huge hint that more indictments could be coming. Weisselberg and the Trump Organization are facing charges of grand larceny and tax fraud. Investigators say it is tied to an alleged scheme that spanned some 15 years. Both Weisselberg and the Trump Organization have pled not guilty. Tom Winters outside that courthouse in New York City has been following this story for us. So, Tom, will walk us through today's proceedings and that significant update we heard from Weisselberg's attorney.
Right, Craig. So this all came about because Weisselberg's attorney was arguing for more time. This was a status conference, basically an opportunity for the judge and all the parties to get into court and say, okay, now that there's been an indictment, there's been a pleading of not guilty, as you said, let's get together and figure out what's the timing of all this is going to be, and when are we going to be back in this court, and when are we going to actually go to trial. And in the process of asking for more time to be able to file their defense motions, presuming that they'll file a motion to dismiss and other types of filings to try to attack the indictment and the charges against their client, Allen Weisselberg, seen center here on the screen, he essentially said, look, there's going to be additional indictments coming. He said they strongly believe, or have a strong belief, that these additional charges are coming. We don't know what those charges will be. We don't know if they're going to involve other individuals. We did ask, the members of the press asked Weisselberg's attorneys outside of court who could be charged here moving forward. They did not answer that question. I asked Weisselberg directly whether or not he was considering whether he will cooperate in this investigation, in this case, and potentially plead guilty. He did not respond to that question either, Craig. So there's a lot that we don't know as far as where this is going to be going. We have reported that other members of the Trump Organization have been brought before the grand jury here in Manhattan. As far as this case goes, back to the scheduling component of it, the defense is going to file their motions in January of next year. Prosecutors will have till May to respond. And then, Craig, we're looking at a possible trial date of late August or early September of 2022 for this case, which folks may think will be a long time from now. But in a complex case like this, with 6 million documents already transferred between the parties, it's actually a pretty quick timeline. Craig?